we want to try to create this place as we do the best work that we absolutely can, and we achieve beautiful, consistent results. And so as long as everybody that's being added to the team is falling into that mold, I think that is really the most important thing for us.
Hello and welcome to Beauty in the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. Now, today's special guest is Nathaniel Villanueva. He's a board-certified plastic surgeon in a multi-surgeon practice located in Beverly Hills. Now, Dr. Villanueva completed his medical degree at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine and his residency at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center, and then completed a fellowship from the University of Southern California's Marina Rocks Plastic Surgery Fellowship, which is really well known. And then he joined the private practice of Doctors Orden and Chopra at the Plastic Surgery Institute. Dr. Villanueva, welcome to Beauty in the Biz podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me today.
Sure. So I have to ask you though, because most did not get on the path that you got on somehow, and you did a killer fellowship, then joined a private practice. So go to your fellowship and your residency. How important was it to hang with some of these top surgeons during your training?
Yeah, so I feel very fortunate and privileged and humbled by the fact that I had the opportunity to stand on shoulders of giants, to be honest. One of the chairman of the program that I joined was Rod Rourke at the time that I joined, and then it transitioned to Jeff Kinkle, both giants in plastic surgery, very well known. And I really, really appreciate the opportunity to have learned under them and to have them as my mentors. And the truth of the matter is that having that kind of specialty training within my residency really opened opportunities for me to interact with some of the greatest thinkers in the world of plastic surgery, and specifically aesthetic plastic surgery, which is unique within a plastic surgery residency, because I am also currently part of the USC residency program here, and as part of the aesthetic fellowship that I was in, I'm one of the associate faculty for that. And one of the things that I've heard and I've seen is that a lot of the residents at different institutions don't necessarily get the full support of the staff when they talk about wanting to go into aesthetic plastic surgery. And I felt the complete opposite in my training. And I think that helped open the opportunities that were given to me to be able to get into the aesthetic fellowship that I did, because there was so much emphasis on really going in and finding what it is that calls you and being supported in doing that.
So once you completed that fellowship, typically you now go out on your own. In
Right.
your case, did you stay on board? Like, what happened?
So it was a very unique interaction, because in the fellowship, I interacted with Dr. Orden and Dr. Chopra because they are members of the same fellowship program. And so as I was operating with them, I'm a California guy. I was born and raised here. I went to New York for medical school, Texas for residency, and then I kind of wanted to make my way back because my whole family's here. Mm-hmm. And so during the fellowship year, there was conversations both here and in other states about where I'm going to land. And I had that conversation, and I was fortunate enough that it was interesting because, you've discussed and talked to Dr. Chopra in the past, but they've seen a lot of fellows, and there was a really nice hand in glove fit with the things that I was interested in and my abilities and what this practice was looking for. And so I'm really fortunate that it really just all aligned beautifully, so that as soon as I was kind of going halfway through the fellowship, I opened the conversation with Dr. Chopra. I'm like, hey, I really like what you guys are doing here. Is there any room for one more? And he's like, as a matter of fact, yes, we've been looking for years and you seem to fit the mold. And so they gave me that opportunity, and I couldn't let it pass.
For those of you who don't know, Doctors Orden and Chopra are the doctors from The Doctor Show. Yeah. So Dr. Orden was the original. He had been on there forever.
Yes.
Then Dr. Chopra joined Dr. Orden's practice and then got him a gig on The Doctors. So the absolute continual PR that you were getting from that show, or those two were getting, is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now you walk in and you get do you take advantage of that? Is that over now, or do you still get a lot from it? Or How
Yeah.
does that work out?
So it was interesting because I actually went on with Dr. Phil with Dr. Orden while I was still a fellow, but I had already signed and joined the practice. We went on the Dr. Phil show to talk about some botched BBL. And so literally like I'm still in fellowship and we're already getting PR, being on TV, being on a nationally syndicated TV show, Dr. Phil, which is very well known. And so there was definitely benefit from it. It's interesting though, with publicity and PR, I think it's really, really important that people know that as soon as you stop, it kind of dries up. It's one of those things that unless you're continuing with it at a consistent pace, it will give the return. But if it's not active, it's not going to see that because people aren't seeing it, so it's not active in their mind. And that's where I think the interesting conversation of social media comes into it because if you're constantly working on social media and showing your work and doing that, it's kind of like constant PR, you know?
Totally. What was that like being on TV? Had that ever happened to you before? Was that new for you?
It was new for me. I had done little like tiny spots here and there. I did something that was a movie fun house in college because
Mhm.
I went to USC and so there's always production and stuff going on. And so I was walking around campus and they're like, hey, do you want to be on a TV show with Ben Stiller? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So that was the first time I actually did it. And they did it was just a basic question. You asked Ben Stiller a question about the Dukes of Hazzard. And so that was the one thing that I had before that was kind of TV related, but it wasn't like this. That was a segment related on us and the practice. And so it was interesting, but it was something that I felt very comfortable doing.
Nice. You're right though. You really have to be on some kind of a series, like I don't know, the Beverly Hills Housewives or something,
Yeah.
to keep it going. Because the minute it stops, the PR stops. And it all comes all at, like it swooshes in there. Like the minute the
Right.
episode shows, hundreds of calls come in,
Yep.
then like a call center, and then it goes away, and you're back to normal.
Yeah,
It's so
for
crazy.
sure.
Did you ever want to go into private practice, or you had such a good invitation that you didn't even think about it?
So for me, there was the financial aspect of it. And so this was something for me that it's not that I'm risk averse. I don't have, you could take loans and you can kind of do that route and take all of this, business plan and get a loan to create your business and then go from there. Um, I was hoping to kind of join a group that was already established. And it was one of those things that I was doing this in a way to try to avoid getting myself into a ton of debt to start a business.
Mhm.
And so it ended up working out for me. I see nothing wrong with people that do that because I think it is a route to getting to ultimate freedom and being able to be in control and to be able to run a practice. But for me, there was another aspect to it that I see Chopra and Orden as mentors also, right? And so for me, having somebody that I can bounce ideas off of that is my business partner made it much more comfortable. And so it made a lot of sense in terms of my personality and also my career trajectory.
And also location.
Yeah,
If you're going to be in the middle of Beverly Hills, dear Lord,
yeah.
that's not an easy feat there. So yeah, that was pretty strategic, by the way. Now, do you join as a contractor, as an employee, as a partner? How does that work? Because now is Dr. Orden still practicing?
So he is. And so he still does cases every now and again. It's more like select patients that get fortunate enough to have him take care of them.
Mhm.
But he's probably doing a couple of cases a month, if that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, he's definitely still in practice. And so the structure that we defined was essentially a contractor model, but it essentially is a partnership model within that. And so the way that we kind of defined this was base salary plus structures and bonuses based on productivity, and then that's kind of been adjusted as we kind of continue to grow and make everything make sense. And so, but it definitely is a partnership.
Gotcha. And then didn't you just add another service
Yes.
recently?
Yeah, we just added a junior partner to the practice, who's also like myself did the fellowship. We were impressed by his personality, by his surgical skill, And so he will be joining us. Vikram Mukherjee will be joining us in July once he finishes his fellowship. And so he's going to be a great addition to the practice. And I think, as practices grow, I think one of the most important things is symbiosis and making sure everybody does kind of especially here in Beverly Hills, where there's subspecialization, even within the practice. Like in our practice, if you're looking to have a deep plane facelift, you're going to see Dr. Chopra. If you're wanting to have a breast augmentation or liposculpting and a fat transfer or rhinoplasty, you're going to see me. Now, Vic is coming into this practice, or Dr. Mukherjee is coming into this practice with kind of taking over some of the cases that Chopra, in terms of the facial aging and kind of that aspect, because that's his interest, with the ultimate plan of, Chopra's not going to be doing this forever, right? And so we're looking forward to the next phases of our practice so that he can have that main realm of our practice, and I can continue doing the things that I enjoy, which are more of the mommy makeovers and the rhinoplasty cases. So it's really makes it internal competition less, because we're not vying for the same patients, if that all makes sense.
Yeah. Well, also, when Dr. Chopra is at a different level at this point, and
Right.
his price point is obscene. So, one of the thoughts is you have plan A or plan B,
Right.
So
Absolutely.
you can to a bigger marketplace who's not going to pay Chopra fees.
100%.
But here's another, going to the person who has been trained by Dr. Chopra is pretty darn good,
100%. And not only that, they're being mentored actively by
Yeah.
Dr. Chopra, right? Yeah. And so there is something to be said about that, because even though they're not paying Dr. Chopra's fees, they're essentially getting Dr. Chopra quality, right? And that I think is critical in understanding that it's not you're getting a lesser option to say, it's just you're not getting him, but you're getting the same quality.
Hello, it's Catherine with a quick announcement. My new book, Beauty in the Biz, the Plastic Surgery Practice Growth Playbook, is at the printer. Now, it's based on 175 interviews with top plastic surgeons across the country, what they're doing differently to convert more, retain more, and profit more. You can pre-order a copy of the book at beautyandthebizbook.com. Now, back to the show. I have to say, you people in particular, your practice, you all seem like the nicest people, and I hope that's true. I don't even want to hear if you all fight all the time. But
no, we definitely don't.
But most surgeons don't get along very well, and somehow you have a beautiful. Everyone's egos are in check, and you know what I like though? You all have boundaries. He's neck up, you're neck down.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty helpful. You're all sharing in the overhead, probably. Is it more like? But what if somebody wanted to buy something? Do you still all kind of operate autonomously, and then big decisions are made together as a group, or just Dr. Chopra or Dan decides what to do?
So right now, I think the senior partner for Clarity is Dr. Chopra. He's taken over the full management, and he's the senior practice manager. And so he controls everything. So, like, for example, if I wanted to buy a liposuction machine, right, I would have the conversation with him. But we're at a point now where the amount of volume and cases that we're doing, it's like it's not even a question. It's like, yeah, go ahead and get whatever you need. Just like him, when he needs to buy something for the practice for him in terms of face lifting device and things like that he sometimes uses, there's no questions about it. He just goes and gets what we need.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is it going to get crowded in there with 3 to 4 surgeons? Do you have OR space for this, or how are you working that out?
Yeah, so we have 2 operating suites here in our practice, and it's kind of crowded right now just because Dr. Chopra operates almost every day. I operate essentially every day. And so for the junior partner, there is secondary OR suites that we have access to in the neighborhood. We have friends in the neighborhood that they would be happy for us to use their ORs. And so even now, I will sometimes go to a different surgery center nearby to do procedures when the ORs here in our facility are booked.
Mm. Oh, it's good to have friends.
Yes.
That have OR space.
Yes.
How are you divvying up staff? Because what happens is in some practices, it becomes this us and them. You become these little mini teams.
Yes.
Do you all share staff? Do you each have your own coordinators? How are you handling that?
Yeah. So we are all have, I have my own coordinator. Dr. Chopra has his coordinator. When Vikram comes in, he's going to have his essentially sharing a coordinator with Dr. Chopra for the time being
Mhm.
until it becomes a point that it needs to either transition or it just depends on the timing and what Dr. Chopra will ultimately end up doing. But there are two coordinators that assist Dr. Chopra right now, and so those two will also be assisting him. So they will have a little bit of room on their plate to help Dr. Mukherjee get in kind of into his flow.
Yeah. Any tips on handling staff? Was that surprising to you, like having to deal with staff?
So before I went into medicine, I worked for my dad in a tile company that we did
Okay.
flooring, ceramic tile, granite, and it's a family-owned business. And so I've kind of grown up with the notion that in jobs, nothing is perfect, and teams and people are going to have normal human interactions in which are never perfect. And
Mhm.
so I think to echo the idea that sometimes it becomes us versus them, I feel that that can be true at
Mhm.
times. But at the end of the day, I think the way that you solve that problem is making sure that it's a collective we and it's not just us versus them. And at the end of the day, that everybody's paycheck comes from that main collection that we all are adding to, and understanding that it's not me paying you directly even though you're my coordinator. We're all kind of pitching into this big pot that distributes and feeds all of the families that work here. It helps kind of alleviate some of that. I do appreciate the fact though that our coordinators individually are looking for the best interest for us and for them. And so it
Mhm.
is beneficial to have a little bit of that. But in the
Mhm.
same breath, it's not to the point that it obstructs the ability for the team to continue to work together, seeing the bigger picture.
Right. I know Dr. Chopra also has another location at Rancho Mirage. Are you
Yes.
involved in that? Are
I
you,
am. I am.
yeah?
So I am also a part of that practice. I go out there every 3 weeks. So the way that we divvy up our time is Dr. Chopra goes out every 3 weeks. So I'm there for a week. Dr. Chopra's there for a week, and then it's going to be great because right now we have a little bit of a gap that there's a couple of weeks that nobody's out there. And
Mm.
so now with Dr. Mukherjee joining the practice, then we'll be pretty continuous
Mhm.
once he gets up and running in that location to be able to all consistently have constantly somebody out there.
And is it a good surgical feeder for you?
It is. It's really interesting. So the catchment out there is unique because that community in itself it's a small community, it's a big community, but it's a
Mm.
small community in that a lot of people, it's a word of mouth community, right?
Hmm.
And so as soon as you're stepping foot into the Plastic Surgery Institute, like, when I did it, and I know that when Dr. Mukherjee does, our nursing staff there is very well known in the community. They've lived there most of their lives. They know, they have groups of friends, and they have a lot of points of contact in the community that they can disseminate information quickly. And so
Mm.
when I started, they were like, "Oh, this is the new young doc. He's awesome. You should see him." And
Mm.
my practice out there was actually busier than my Beverly Hills practice for probably the first 2 years of my practice,
Wow.
because there was already an existing word of mouth in the community that if you go to the Plastic Surgery Institute in Rancho Mirage, you're going to get good work no matter what.
Mm.
And so that was a really, really beneficial starting point for me. And then as my name and reputation and results and everything started to grow, then I became, then this practice here in Beverly Hills started to surpass that in terms of, amount of procedures that I'm doing on a monthly basis and things like that. But it's still a very, very active, busy portion of my practice.
For the audience who doesn't know, Rancho Mirage is a incredibly upscale community, and well worth your time to hang out
Yeah. Yeah, and it's absolutely beautiful. And it's a really interesting thing, even for me as the surgeon that goes out there, because it's a little bit of a, you know, historically, old Hollywood would go out to Palm Springs, Rancho Mirage area for vacation. And that still exists to this day, that the LA folks looking to get a nearby getaway go out to that region. And some of those folks ended up ultimately settling out there because it's just such a picturesque desert scape that there is a lot of affluence, but there's also a lot of normal middle income families. And just like they care about how they look here, they care about how they look there. And so there's a lot of opportunities to take care of everybody.
Yeah, it's just so darn hot there. I
Yeah,
don't know. You know,
I love it. I love it out there in the summer.
yeah. Give me so far it sounds like this has been smooth sailing. Give me
Yeah.
a big mistake that you made that you learned from and others can learn from as well.
Um, I think in terms of the biggest mistakes that I think can happen in a practice, I think one of the things that I've seen this happen here is when employees start talking too much about salaries and
Mhm.
talking too much about how much they make.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of those things that is part of human nature, but I also think can cause issues in your practice and can cause a little bit of conflict. And so one example of that is that there was a communication at some point in which the the payment structure of one employee was discussed in front of another that
Mhm.
didn't have that payment structure. So one had commission, one didn't.
Yeah.
They were doing similar work, and that creates can create a little bit of turmoil, right? And
Mhm.
so there's a lot of things that in having these communications and discussing, and this was something that I was not aware of at the time because I'm the young guy, right? I didn't know that somebody was certain payment structure versus another different payment structure. I knew that one person had this payment structure, but I didn't know this other person didn't. And so in communicating what we were trying to get across, then that kind of like, well, why was this communicated to that person? And it was like, well, look, that's my bad. I didn't know that. And so
Mhm.
that is definitely a learning point for me, is that if you are joining a practice, it's important for you to understand how everybody is being compensated, because you don't want to create this sensation or this feeling that you're not getting appropriately compensated for the job that you're doing, or that somebody's more valuable than somebody else in the practice. And granted, there's tiers to everything, right? But in the same breath, you want everybody to feel equally as important, which I do feel every single employee is a critical component of our business. And so that's where I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that I've made, is not understanding that full dynamic. But we rebounded from it because it was a technical blip, but it didn't end up leading to anything major.
It's a never ending issue in most practices because there are different roles
Right.
that are paid differently typically because, for example, the coordinator who wants to do sales, how many staff people say, I'm not a salesperson, I can't be pushy. Well, then
Right.
you don't get paid that. you know
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
so there. Oh, but you're right. It's so another problem is the coordinators who are selling know what they're bringing in,
Right.
and they start that really. You making
Yeah.
too much, and what am I making?
Right.
And
Right.
it's a never ending touchy issue. Money is just an issue, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Money.
I think it always is. And I think the most important thing is, I think at the end of the day, for your staff to feel well compensated for the job that they do is important. But I also think it's human nature to never think you're getting enough.
Yeah,
Right. And I think that's where, even as a surgeon, you're like, oh, we should try to get more cases or increase our fees, or, you know what I mean? I think it's just the nature of, I think the way we were programmed is to
yeah.
try to get more, right? And I respect that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in the same breath, I think it's also important when you're having somebody be your right hand, right, as a coordinator position. I think it's also important to include them in some of the greater numbers of things, like how much it costs to keep your lights on, how much it costs to keep the doors open, how much, and because they are seeing the big number, it also
Mhm.
is important for them to see the other numbers to a certain extent, not full transparency, but to also get a sense of like, hey, this is being divvied up in this many ways before it's being divvied out, right? And so that I think is also beneficial when you're having that kind of conversation.
Yeah. I hate to ask, are there any growth plans, or are you guys going to settle down now and you're going to have four surgeons Dr. Orton's going to come in periodically. There'll be three of you.
Yeah.
Is that going to be it for now, or?
So I think for now, um, I think so. I think there is always room for growth. I think the one place where we have a little bit of extra room is somebody wanted to be an isolation surgeon out in our Rancho Mirage location.
Oh,
That might be something that we consider at some point. We've had that discussion a few times. It would just have to be the right fit. There's not a need for it. It's really just if somebody fits the bill. But right now, there's no plans for much expansion beyond really. I think Dr. Chopra, his mindset and what we've discussed was we want to try to create this place as we do the best work that we absolutely can and we achieve beautiful, consistent results. And so, as long as everybody that's being added to the team is falling into that mold, I think that that is really the most important thing for us.
nice. Let's switch gears and talk about marketing.
Yeah.
Beverly Hills. Do you know how many surgeons are in Beverly Hills? I know how many do you have in your own building?
In our building, we probably have about 20,
Yeah.
if not more.
I mean, people don't realize how competitive Beverly
Yeah.
Hills is. It is so important to have that darn zip code.
Yes.
But so, how do you feel about the competition? Is it crushing? Is it distracting? Is it could care less? Where are you at with that?
Yeah. So I think there's two mindsets when it comes to this question. It's a feast or famine. And I think the people that are of the famine mindset, that every single patient is the most important thing to try to gather that patient, sees everybody else as a competitor. And I'm more of a feast mentality when it comes to this, in the sense that I think there's plenty to go around. I think a lot of patients choose different surgeons that, especially here in this area, there everybody's talented, everybody's very good. And so patients are going to align with surgeons that they feel most comfortable with. And since we are a catchment of the world, it's not really just Los Angeles and California. We have patients that fly in from across the world because we are known for the plastic surgery that we do. And
Mhm.
so that's where I think the population, even just the population of Los Angeles, right? We're talking millions of people that are
Mhm.
available to have these procedures. And so there's very little in my mind competition. I see my other plastic surgeons in towns more as colleagues and as friends. And that's where I think that mindset actually is beneficial to us. And it's beneficial to us in the sense that, you know, everybody has issues, right? And if you have a surgical complication and that patient goes and sees another surgeon, if they're your competition and you're talking bad about them and you're creating issues and strife, then that person is not going to be like, hey, this is a normal thing that can sometimes happen with surgery, and this is how we can treat it, but I recommend you go back to Dr. V to get him to take care of it. And I've had the opposite happen. I've had other patients that have had an issue with another surgeon, and instead of slamming that surgeon, I'm like, hey, have you talked to Dr. So and so about this issue? Because I know I've interacted with them. They're good people. They will very likely take care of you. And it's been times where they're like, oh, I didn't think I just, because I've had an issue, I didn't want to call him back. And I'm like, no, you should. I'm sure he'll get you taken care of and get you through the process. And I think that really changes the whole dynamic of that competition versus collegiality, and kind of really being a community member as opposed to an isolationist.
For sure. Dr. Chopra also has such a good attitude about competition. It's collaboration,
Yeah.
not competition. I just love that.
Yeah.
By the way, you speak Spanish. Is
Yes.
that helpful? Does that
Oh,
grow the
absolutely.
audience or?
Yes. I speak Spanish and I'm also fluent in Portuguese.
Oh,
And I think that's very beneficial, especially in medicine, because even though some patients may be bilingual and they speak some English, they feel more comfortable especially when it comes to medical terms and recovery and comfort level, having somebody that can clearly communicate to them what it is that they're going to have done and the procedures and what the recovery is like, and to talk them through the recovery process, I think is very, very beneficial. And it does open up the opportunity for a lot of patients to reach out when they may not have, because they didn't know that somebody could speak to them and talk to them about the procedures that they're interested in their own language.
For sure. What about patient trends? Instagram has really changed. Social media is just
Yeah.
changing our world so quickly. Do you have to keep up on all the new terms, or are you staying out of the social media? Where are you at with that? And the
Yeah,
patient,
so I follow along with social media for sure. I follow just because we are in Tinseltown, right? And so we have, a lot of celebrity. So I follow accounts like TMZ, and I follow these accounts that are do talk about plastic surgery and things that are happening within the celebrity world because people tend to follow, right? There was a Kim Kardashian effect years ago about everybody getting BBLs after they saw her body and her shape, and they wanted to have a very similar appearance. And so, and then now, their physique and things like that are getting a little bit more smaller, a little bit more tone, and people are following that, right? And so there's a lot of shifts that follow what society tends to tell people looks good, right? And so I think there is definitely an influence that exists out there, and it's important to kind of understand it so that you know where your patients are coming from, and you can help also set realistic expectations. Because if you have somebody that has a different body type that can't really achieve that look, it's really important for you to understand, oh, this is their goal, but anatomically we can't achieve that, but we can get them somewhere where they might be happy, and you have that conversation to see if that's a doable thing for them.
right? Those Kardashians are they have been a godsend to this industry and
Yeah.
also, both,
Yeah.
but Kim Kardashian, I mean, when she had that BBL, I
Yeah.
mean, the whole thing shifted. It's like, oh my God,
Oh, absolutely.
all the surgeons are doing BBLs. And then when she took it away, oh, okay, let's all go the other way.
Yes.
And then when Kris Jenner had a facelift, oh my God,
Yep.
okay, we all go that way. It is shocking how influential that group has been.
Oh, absolutely. And then Kylie Jenner being public about her breast augmentation, all of these things I think are beneficial. I think transparency is something that we haven't had in that realm of celebrity and influence. And
Mhm.
so having that transparency I think is really critical because it adds to um, the human nature of that celebrity world, because a lot of everything that existed before is like, oh, did so and so do this? And that still exists to this day. They'll get docs to point at a picture of somebody and be like, oh, they've done this, this, and this. And I totally avoid that because I think that's very, I don't know. I think it's unethical for those that do it, do your thing, but I just don't find it appropriate to point at somebody that you've never done a surgery on and say what or guess what they did. But in the same breath, I think there is something that is a little bit refreshing about the fact that they're telling you, hey, I did have this procedure done, that's why I look this way.
Mhm.
And then it opens up the opportunity to other people to be like, oh yeah, they're human, right? They're not this untouchable non-human creature.
Yeah. So where would you say most of your patients are coming from?
I would say the majority of my patients today are coming from my social media.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's more than 50% of my patients. There's a lot of internal referrals that have, that have started to develop over the years. And then community referrals and things like that, just from being out and about in the community, that people have learned who I am, and, they know my wife or they'll know one of my injectors or something like that. But there is a very, very strong component that is social media driven.
Well, you've got like 246,000 Instagram followers. Uh,
Yeah.
how much time are you spending on that?
That's a great question. Too much time.
Yeah.
I'm literally, it's a 24/7 job.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, we have some assistance with it, but at the end of the day, I am a very hands on, very like, this is me, this is my brand, this is everything that represents me to the world. And so it's one of those things that I'm extremely hands on with that because I don't want it to deviate from me and the evolution and the growth that I've had from being such an integral part of that representation of me. And so, and I don't, for me, it's not a persona or a personality that I play on there. And then I try to be as genuine as I can while I'm on there, so that my ultimate goal is for patients to understand who I am. And so that when they come from a social media post that they like or saw, or me talking about a procedure, that the person that they're going to see in the exam room is the same one. And that's really the ultimate goal for me, is to blend that seamlessly so that there's a familiarity, because at the end of the day, we are all working for patients to trust us and to
Right.
believe that we're going to take care of them and get them to that beautiful goal. And that's the most critical thing, because that's all I really care about at the end of the day. Like, I love what I do, I'm very passionate about what I do, but for me, the human interaction is just as important, and the patient satisfaction is the most important. And for me, I really delve in and make sure that I truly understand my patients so that I can help them achieve the goal that they're going for.
Well, you're doing a really good job of getting them on your Instagram. Any tips for photo consents?
Honestly, it's been self-driven. I just ask patients, hey, would you allow me to use your photos? And most of them say yes, because they're like, well, I came to you because I saw somebody else let me share,
Yeah.
let you share their photos. And so, early on, we would incentivize a little bit, just because I didn't have, early on, I mean, within like my first year of practice,
Mhm.
we would do like little discounts and stuff to help incentivize patients to allow us to post. But now, honestly, there's even people that have tons of followers on Instagram that are like, "Hey, post my stuff," and it's great. It's a collaborative, very open environment. I will say though that the bigger influencers that have come through,
Mhm.
because some people will come in, especially if you're big on Instagram or social media in general, just TikTok, whatever it may be. Um, there'll be people that reach out, maybe some of their, PR people that are like, "Hey, would you be willing to do a collaboration with so and so for better pricing and things like that?" And I'll entertain those conversations to see what they can bring to the table, to see if it's worth the value that we're exchanging. However, I also give all of these influencers a cautionary note, which is, if they're going to go public with this, be ready for some negative feedback. It's
Mhm.
not all positive. There's a lot of haters, there's a lot of people out there that don't agree with plastic surgery. And so they're going to give negative feedback when somebody's being so open. And the reason I say that is because when somebody's in the throes of a recovery, that they might be in a little bit of discomfort, they might
Mhm.
not be seeing the end result, and then they're seeing negative feedback on the choice that they made, it can really get into their heads in a bad way. And so I think it's really important, when you're having all of these conversations, that you disclose that and prepare them for it, and just tell them it is a process if they really want to do this.
For sure. I've just noticed though, influencers, the problem is they get a taste of this. Like, let's say somebody does a deal with them and they're like, "This is amazing, I got all this free surgery," and then you see them in another person's office and another
Right.
person's office, and
Yes.
it completely dilutes the whole point, which was
Totally.
it chose you over everybody else.
Right.
It just, I think that has almost run its course, unless you have a really good original. I like when they come organically, but
Yes.
who's organic anymore? Like, everything's so
Right.
darn structured, But
Yeah.
I would just say, use it sparingly, because I notice as a consumer, I think, oh, for God's sakes, now she's in this guy's office, and I,
Right. No, and I think you're absolutely right about that. There are some folks early in my practice, before, when I was at like 5,000 followers, that I'd
mm,
see somebody that had 100,000 followers. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, whatever you want, we'll do it. We'll do it. I'll just, we'll reduce the cost. I never did anything for free. I learned from somebody that you need to have a little bit of skin in the game,
yes, yes.
because if not, it really devalues you and your practice completely, because then there's zero skin in the game, there's no commitment to you, and you get thrown by the wayside very quickly, like you're mentioning. But
Mhm.
that being said, there are folks that I've done deals with in the past, and I've seen, just like you're saying, a couple years later, they're at another office doing something else, and then they're at another office doing something else. And so it is very true about the dilution that exists in that world.
Yeah. So we're getting to the end here. Tell us a crazy patient or staff story you care to share.
Okay. Um, the one that comes to mind is really interesting, and I think it's a story for anybody that is in the realm of plastic surgery or has a business in medicine or aesthetics, to be careful with. So there was two patients that came from out of state. And they used a financing program that is in favor of the patient. Okay. And so they were using somebody else's name on the financing program. And so they were using a different name, and they said that it was a relative of theirs. Okay.
Mhm.
That was paying for the surgery through their credit
Mhm.
on this financing program. And we actually called and verified with the financing program, are they allowed to use it? And the financing program told us over the phone, yes, they are. They're allowed. And so we're like, okay, great. Let's sign them up for surgery. Two patients, two operations, probably a total of $50,000. And the patients were getting ready to fly in. And one of the aftercares, actually, the owner of the aftercare, called me a few days before surgery and goes, hey, I've seen something. I smell something funny with this group. Be careful. I'm not going to let them stay here. I was
Oh.
like, okay. So I used that information and I asked my coordinator, hey, double check everything. Again, she called, confirmed with the financing company. Hey, can this person use this? Is this okay? Is this all kosher? Yes. Okay. And so I was like, they had a sneaking suspicion, but it was fine. And so patients came in, did their surgeries, went to another aftercare, and here's the crazy part of the aftercare. So they're in that aftercare. It's a very elite aftercare luxury hotel that the patients, in addition to the nursing, can also order room service. And they racked up a bill of, I think, $10,000 in room service. And what, to my surprise, was actually alcohol while they're recovering from surgery, bottles of champagne, and all sorts of crazy stuff, right? And then they leave. And then we get a notification about, I want to say it was maybe 3 to 6 months after the fact, from that financing company, that it was all scam. And then they asked us, and this is where the fine print is critical. And this was one of the things that we made a mistake on, but we're also kind of disappointed with that financing company because we called and verified twice.
Mhm.
That did we have a wet signature on a piece of paper that we could show them from the person, the name that was approved, the name of the person that they were using? Did we have their wet signature? And did we have a physical copy of that person's ID in our possession?
Mhm.
And that we didn't have because we asked them if these people could sign, and so there was a little bit of a miscommunication, but they used their fine print to withdraw the funds from us.
Unbelievable.
And so we were at that point at a complete loss. And it was one of those things that it had been so many months, and at that point I didn't think to go and prosecute and go and find these people and chase them down and file a police report and kind of go all that route. We should have, to be honest. But I just, at that point, I was so just in the throes of my practice. And I'm just like, all right, great. We're going to take this as a loss and we just got to keep moving on. But it was a definite insane story that we got totally scammed.
I have
And
not
they did it
heard that
well.
one before. Yeah, that's a new one on me. Because I was always surprised that you could use somebody else's loan that was already
Yeah.
approved. That always surprised me. I thought,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
somebody else got a loan and I can use it.
Yeah.
But that's a really good tip, though. You must get that person's signature and
Yes.
photo to go with
Yes.
it, and ask them,
Yes.
are you sure you
Yeah.
want this person to use this? Oh my.
Yeah, 100%. Because that person that had that, and it was interesting. It was actually during the pandemic when
Mm.
there was a lot of hacking and kind of like, and so they somehow were able to hack that person's account in the financing company and put themselves as authorized users because
Mm.
that person never did it. And so these people were so sophisticated in achieving that it was I was like, well, I got.
Yeah, it's an expensive lesson, but you learned it really early on.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, holy cow. Sorry to hear about that.
Yeah.
All right, last question. Tell us something interesting we don't know about you.
Well, I think one of the interesting things about me is I'm a pretty boring family man. I really am kind of, I come here, I do my work, and I go home to my family. I've
Well, if
been,
you look on your Instagram, you can tell two things. One, you love surgery. Two, you love your wife and your little girls.
that's right. That's right. And so, I've been with my wife since we were 14 and 15 years old.
Unbelievable.
And so I told her when I was a freshman in high school, and I told her, I'm going to marry you someday. And she looked at me, she's like, okay. And then 10 years later, we got married. And then 15 years later, we're here now. And so it's literally it's been essentially since 2001 this past year. So 25 years that we've been in each other's lives. And so that's kind of something unique about me. The interesting thing about that story is that my sister and my brother are also with the same person that they were with in high school.
That's so
And
crazy.
yeah, and so my dad's been with my mom essentially since they were 20. And so it's kind of just what we know, and that's kind of our
It's
family.
a family tradition to
Yeah.
find this person when you're 14 years old and stay the course.
Yeah.
That is so that's so unusual and so sweet. It's
Yeah.
so nice to hear that. Oh, that's great. If anybody wanted to get a hold of you, what's funny is your marketing now is getting a little screwy because your website is called ordenandchopra.com or
Right.
ordenchopra.com.
Yes.
But then your Instagram at least is Dr. Dr. and then your initials MNV plastic surgery. Right?
Yes. That is
Okay.
correct. Yeah. So also the part of that has to do with the fact that we created a lot of SEO on the internet and
Mhm.
through Google with that original handle
Yeah.
of Dr. Orden Chopra. However, we are now additioning. So if you actually type in the plasticsurgeryinstitute.com, it will
Mhm.
actually link you to that same website. And so we're still working under the realm of the Plastic Surgery Institute. And so we're trying to kind of do a transition or a shift over the course of the next few months, just because now we're adding another surgeon to the practice. And so that's kind of the DBA that we're going by, which is the Plastic Surgery Institute.
That is so much easier to remember than your last
Yes.
names. Jeez,
Yes.
you have tough names there. So,
Yes.
thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to get to know you better. I'll be watching you online, see how things go with your career, and your family, of course. And everyone, that's going to wrap it up for us today. If you would do me a favor and give me a review and subscribe to Beauty and the Biz so I can grow our audience. And then if you've got any questions or feedback for me, please leave them on my website at catherinemaley.com, or you can certainly DM me on Instagram at Catherine Maley MBA. And with that, we'll talk again soon. Hello, it's Catherine. If your practice feels busy but you're not seeing the growth you expected, there's usually a reason, and it's often something small that's quietly costing you revenue. That's why I offer a practice growth review. Now, in this call, I'll take an objective look at your patient flow, conversion process, and retention strategies to identify where opportunities may be slipping through the cracks. You'll walk away with a clear picture of what's working, what's not, and the few changes that could make the biggest difference. If you'd like an unbiased set of expert eyes on your practice, simply visit catherinemaley.com to schedule your review.